So the usual, now that the bar mitzvah is finished speaking, I'll say a few words. And I want to just make the point that one of perhaps the most positive outcomes of the horrific dystopian nightmare that we have found ourselves in post-October 7th is that many Jewish people have found a kind of renewed connection to their Jewish family, a kind of renewed connection that in the past might not have been so strong. People who would have said, I don't know if I feel connected to those kinds of Jews, to Jews who look this way or feel that way. But somehow, as many of us have felt perhaps less protected by other people outside of the Jewish community, we have at the same time found ourselves renewing or perhaps discovering strong connections to others within our Jewish family. And yes, we have an identity as human beings, and we have an identity that comes from other aspects of who we are. But our Jewish identity, I believe in many respects, our Jewish connections have been strengthened. So I want to just take us to a moment in the story of Joseph and his family that I think really resonates for us. So there is a moment where the brothers go down to Egypt and they're standing in front of Joseph and they need food and they don't know who he is. And they're speaking to him and he starts to, it appears, exact a certain revenge from them. He's asking them questions. Who are you? Are you spies? And then it's time to eat. And the Torah describes what happens when it's time to eat. And it says, Vayasimu lo levado, vehem levadam, velamitzrim levadam. So the brothers ate separately, the Egyptians ate separately, and Joseph ate by himself. It's an incredible detail. I missed it the first many times that I listened to this. So what's happening? He can't eat with his brothers because they don't know who he is, and he's estranged from them. The Egyptians don't want to eat with him because he's a Hebrew, and maybe he's risen up high in the ranks, but they're not going to eat with him. And so he's alone. And I think it is so powerful that in this moment, he finds himself alone because the people around him haven't fully accepted him, and he's estranged from his own family. And it's such an interesting cautionary tale. When we are feeling isolated from the rest of the world, if we're also estranged from other Jews because they look this way, or talk that way, or think this way, then we might find ourselves feeling very much alone. And I want to just speak to that part of us that sometimes finds ourselves alone because those around us don't fully want to connect with us, and because there's static on the line when it comes to our Jewish family. So I'm just going to share a few positive moments when I think there has been remarkable connection within the Jewish family. So the first, of course, is that before October 7th, Israel, we know, experienced extraordinary disunity, and there were protests that were being held, and many of them were being held by people who are extraordinarily patriotic, so much so that after October 7th, those who led the protests also led the civic response that was necessary to provide support during the war. And by the way, often have been mainstays as well of the military process. So the disunity that existed before seems to have yielded a common sense of purpose. What's going to happen, God willing, when this war is over remains to be seen. But within the Jewish family, there has been a connection that didn't exist. You look at the Israeli army. The Israeli army is a remarkable melting pot of Israeli society. One of the reasons why Haredi leaders don't want Haredi young people to enter the army is because they have a strong exposure to the whole range of Israeli society. So you have right now right wing and left wing and center and men and women, and you have secular and you have observant and you have Haredi Jews serving in the army, which is a game changer for Israeli society like no other perhaps than we have seen in recent times. So you have this unity that's taking place within the Israeli army. And I also want to point out that there have been many times when I have just felt this extraordinary sense of connection to Jewish people that perhaps over a month ago, I might not have noticed the connection. So I saw recently, and you can find it, just this beautiful video. There are many like it of Israeli soldiers that are coming back on leave and sort of surprising their families. They kind of knock on the door, and it's been 2 months, let's say, since they've seen them. And so they surprise a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a parent or a sibling or a child. And so this young man was finished and temporarily and on leave. And so he went back home and he entered the office where his father was working. And his father was sitting at the computer and he was standing there and he said, "Shalom." And the father just said, "Shalom." He didn't even bother to turn around. And then the son tapped his father on the shoulder. And his father, who has a thick beard and a giant velvet black kippah, stands up in shock and starts to cry and starts to hug his boy. And he says, "Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad." And then he says, "Baruch HaTov HaMeitiv," praised is God who does good things, the blessing that you say. And then he just kind of invented this prayer. He said, "Ana Hashem," he said, "Dear God, return all of the soldiers to their parents, take care of them, watch over them," you know? And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, like who couldn't relate to this father? Who can relate to this moment? And there are so many moments when if we could just look beyond, what does this person look like? What do I associate this person with? What kind of Jew is this person? And just feel that strong connection. I think it would help us during this very difficult time to feel a little bit less alone. So yes, we are all human and we share humanity with every human being. And yes, there are multiple aspects of our identity that are important parts of who we are, but I believe that now, perhaps more than in recent times, those who identify with the Jewish people are finding this aspect of our identities to grow more strongly, that we are looking perhaps now beyond that which prior might have kept us at bay, and we are willing to reach out and to embrace and to feel this strong connection. Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu, as one of the brothers said, we are all siblings. We are all in this together. And may that aspect of our identity, our connection with our Jewish family continue to give us strength, and may we grow in that strength. Amen.